What's going on YouTube? Today we're taking a look at this beautiful Shirogorov Neon NL in this very special knife center edition inlay. Now, as I've always stated, you know, these videos are very much a fireside conversation, talking about the knife, discussing how it looks, how it feels in hand, what it compares with, etc. And so if I do make mistakes, I apologize, and I encourage you guys, if there is any mistakes, to just, you know, write a comment below so that I can improve for next time. But anyway, on to some more Shirogorovs here. We're on a bit of a Shirogorov kick right now, and wanted to show this guy off. So I had done a video on a Neon NL, and where is that one here? I had a comment on it asking for a little more information. So here's the NL Micarta, and I had a comment that said, hey, I'd really like to see a little bit more of the KC edition. Now, the KC edition knife center is from my personal collection. It's not in the store currently. I don't know if it will be at any point, but I did pick it up because it was a little unique, and whether it's worth something a little more down the road, maybe, I don't know. It's just, to me, a little cooler and a little more, less common, I should say. A little more less common. That sounds strange, but we'll go with it. So, in every aspect that this knife is, it is identical, as far as I know, to the Neon NL. Okay? Every little piece about it, every little bit, as far as I know, it is identical to the Neon NL Micarta. Fun fact, I should say, on the NL, I found this out, NL stands for inlay. It's, I guess, a little bit of a play on words, but N-L-lay, inlay. I guess that's the translation, I suppose, in some kind of Russian conversion, which is cool. But everything about this, compared to the last video, is identical, other than it's got that cool NL inlay on it, and that I think looks really sharp and separates it from some of the other knives. So what I will show you as well with that Micarta one. So the Micarta, when you look at it, first of all, you kind of think that it's like, it has a rough texture. It looks like jeans almost, or a canvas, and it's not the case. And I don't know how much the camera's going to pick up on this, or if it's going to freak out, but it's actually very smooth. So it's all, I don't want to say it's like polished, but it's a very smooth Micarta, okay? Now, in terms of this guy, I can't tell you what material it is, but it's also very, very smooth all around. And you know, it's to me, it kind of looks like a bacteria-y kind of growing texture. I don't know what they call it, but it certainly just looks real cool, functional. It's a little grippier, I'd say, as well. It's probably a rubber, I'm guessing. I don't know what type of rubber or whatever, but yeah, it's certainly cool. Now, in terms of the rest of the knife, it is Chromax PM particle metal steel, which is, if you're new here, you know, it's essentially L-Max on steroids, which is super cool. It's just refined, just a little bit better, a little bit more, all around. And you know, Chromax is just one of those steels that you're not going to have issues with. Sure, it's not M390, but it's certainly not a bad thing. Real nice grind on it as well, and really sharp. Like, these things are razor sharp. You can probably see it's taken my nail off there, just from that. You know, Shirogorovs are just obscenely sharp out of the box. Now, so it's got that Chromax blade on it. Some real nice jimping on the top here. Very, very usable jimping, I'd say, for those, you know, guided cuts. You can get up, you can choke up on it real nice. In terms of sizing of the Neon, this is what a lot of people think is a small knife, and unfortunately, it's not small. It's more of a mid-size. So we're going, what do we have here? 3.5 3.5 sharpened, maybe a little bit more. And then an overall of 7 3/4, which is, you know, a very usable, 7 5/8, something like that. It's a very usable knife. Now, how does this compare? Well, first and foremost, you know, the one knife that I always like to kind of compare it to is a large Sebenza, because everybody seems to know what a large Sebenza is for size, and you can kind of see what that looks like. We could do a pair. I've got a pair of two here today as well, for reference, to give you an idea. And remember, the pair is really close to the camera, and it's going to actually appear a little bit bigger just from the angles on things. But just to give you a rough size estimate, it's not a small knife like a small Sebenza, right? So you know, a small Sebenza is much smaller than a Neon. So to give you an idea, right? There's your large, your small, and then the Neon. Right, that should be a pretty good matchup. Now, in terms of the Shirogorov lineup itself, I've actually got a little bit of a new one here to show you. Hopefully that doesn't shoot up frames too much. In terms of Shirogorov, so this is their baby. Okay, everybody knows about you know, the F95 or the Quantum. So here's an F95, which is their gold standard as far as I'm concerned in terms of what, if you're just getting into Shirogorov, you know, you've heard of the Turtle. Like, this thing is, I don't want to say world-renowned, but it is an absolute gem of a knife. Love everything about it. I love the milling. Love the design, the fit in hand, 4-inch blade, the size, the action on it, the multi-row bearings. Everything about the F95 I am a huge fan of, and I'm a Shiro whore in that regard. The Neon has a lot of those features, multi-row bearings, tie frame, etc. But there's a couple new ones here that I wanted to show you in the lineup that kind of bridge these gaps and kind of show that there's some different available. So this guy, this is a Custom Division Stellaris, new to my collection, and it is taking things up a notch. And this bridges the gap between the Neon and the F95. As you can see, it's kind of right in the sweet spot. It kind of has the handle size-ish of the F95 with a blade length that's just a little shorter. Real beautiful, gorgeous knife, and I'm going to have to do a video on that. And then one knife that also just recently came in that I'll be doing a video on is the 111. Which is a 111mm blade, full carbon, covered in fingerprints. But this guy goes one step up in the conversation, and now it goes, you know, small, medium, large, extra large, rather than Neon and F95 being small and large. So we've got small, medium, large, extra large, and it's a real cool lineup to kind of have and play with and see, you know, what's good, what's bad, what's ugly, and you know, what your preference is. But there is a good size overview of a couple of these blades. You're no longer kind of stuck with, look at this thing, man, this is just nuts. Oh, that I'm going to have to do a video on at some point. But yeah, you're no longer stuck with small or large. And remember, small is more of a medium and large is more of a, well, large. But it's cool to have some options. But we're not here to talk about that. I could probably go on and on. I'm sure I've got ADD or something. We're here to talk about the Neon. And so some of its features. So, you know, titanium frame all around. One thing I will say about the Neon NL and how it compares with the Neon Zero, which I happen to have right here as well, you're getting a lot of bang for your buck with the Neon NL. Now, if you compare this, I believe these are don't quote me, but I want to say $550, maybe $600, somewhere around there, and this is like $715, $730, something like that, US. You're getting a heck of a lot of knife at this price point here. You know, in the quantum range, you can see the feature lineup, you know, plastic versus tie, single row versus multi-row, machine versus non-machine, handle internally, externally. There's a lot of little different intricate price points as you kind of go up the lineup. With these guys, it's kind of like Neon Zero is their top of the line unless you jump into their custom division. In that regard, there's a couple different versions. I've actually got one coming here down the pipe here pretty soon of some collabs where they do some machining work and maybe blast it, and you know, they make it look cool. But for the most part, these knives are very similar. Okay, essentially, other than the blade. So Chromax, remember I talked about earlier, the M390. Well, that's kind of the main difference here. The Zero's got an M390 blade. The NL has Chromax PM and the absence of a back spacer. That's really it. Same pocket clip, same frame as far as I'm aware. Milling on the inside, it's kind of tough to see here. No, milling on the inside is a little bit different, so I can't say they're identical in that regard. Same external frame, same clip, but milling on the inside is in fact a little different. So that is fair. There should be a different, other than, you know, 120 bucks, 130 bucks more for just the blade. But the main thing here is your starting point is multi-row bearings, which is so cool. I love that. I love that about this design, is that you're putting the multi-row bearings. And if you're unfamiliar with multi-row bearings, think of it as a regular, you know, a standard single row bearing would be like, you know, what you have in your head. So picture it as bearings in a circle, and you know, you've got a bearing track in a circle, and then bearings that fall in that track in a circle pattern. Okay, that's it. Now, multi-row bearings, think of it as a pinwheel of bearings in a circle where each blade has 3 bearings in a row. Almost like a needle bearing, but think of it as 3 bearings in the spot of a needle bearing. Does that make sense? Even just saying it, I feel like I've fucked that up a little bit. But think of it as that, a pinwheel bearing. So it's just, you get a little bit more contact. And from my experience, it's a little longer to break in and it's a little slower. But once it breaks in, you don't have issues with it. And it's kind of their standard right now. And it feels great. Now, one thing I will say, I've watched a video on Pocket Priorities playing with a Neon, I don't know what he had, a Neon Zero or an NL or something, and he's talking about how the detent was real tight. And he's also a guy that he knows what he's talking about. So in no way am I slandering what he's saying, because he has a very wide breadth and depth of experience when it comes to different knives, different brands, different deployments. And if I didn't know something about a knife, I would trust his opinion on it implicitly. But he said his Neon had a very, very stiff detent and he couldn't deploy it. Now, I can understand how he sees that if you don't know how to shoot a Shirogorov out, because as soon as you put some weight on the lock bar on these, they don't like it. So that's my experience there. So this is why with a pocket clip, and I've touted this as a very nice design, is that this pocket clip transfers the weight instead of over the lock bar, it puts it onto the frame itself. So when you wrap this in your hand, it pushes down, and lo and behold, if the camera doesn't want to screw up, I'll try to focus it on the back. Lo and behold, you transfer that weight, and it goes onto the side of the frame here. So when you're shooting these out, all you really have to do is make sure that what's in your hand, that the weight of your fingers or whatever, you know, is either on the micarta or the whatever. It's either holding there or on the pocket clip like that. And what I like to do is just rest kind of my hands on the back here in that way. They kind of overlay the pocket clip, and then that way it shoots out no problem. It does not have a stiff detent in my opinion. It just means you have got some weight or some pressure on the lock bar. And that's all there is to it. And that's not a bad thing. Just saying, you know, that's I'm a Shirogorov guy. I've got, I don't know, 20 or so beside me. And I don't have a problem with it. So, just my opinion. But in terms of the rest of the package, the KC edition is every bit as good as the Neon NL, just with some unique graphics. Same multi-row bearing, same flipper on the top, same kind of machining work around the top here where you shoot it out and your thumb is, in theory, supposed to go down into that, which I don't think it really does. Or your finger, sorry. Let's take a look. Kind of ends up behind it. Well, maybe on it. Yeah, kind of on it, in it. Back half of it, I'd say. So maybe there's some validity to that. In terms of the fit in your hand, I'm an extra large glove. And I still have a knife coming out of it, which is cool. I got handle coming out of it, not knife. Derp, right? You know, I love the Shirogorov logo, kind of machined into the top of the handle here. You know, the darker, you know, the bacteria, tiger, whatever stripe you want to call it, the eye of the tiger, the holy diver, looks good. The lock bar insert is a different metal. Now, one thing that often we forget here is that, you know, just because that lock bar insert's metal doesn't mean it's the only reason for, you know, longevity and replaceability of that surface. When you have a titanium frame and when you have a metal blade of different materials, it would not surprise me if you can custom tune that metal lock bar insert to different materials to prevent lock stick. And I think it'd be ignorant of me to presume that all of their lock bar inserts are the same material, because Shirogorov does a lot of different blade materials, from LMAX to Chromax to M390 to Vanex and everything in between. So, you know, don't think of that lock bar insert as just, hey, we want, you know, something that's going to last forever and, you know, as it wears out, we can replace it. No, it's not just that. That's totally a great benefit. But to me, the big thing is that you can tune it so that there's no lock stick between metal components. Because titanium and steel, they don't really like to play well together. And if you've had some older frame locks where there is not a lock bar insert, I'm sure you'll totally get that. The rest of the machining on the knife is absolutely bananas. And we can see, you know, just look at the pocket clip. Looks good. A lot of the machine work in there as well. Inside the frame, as I discussed earlier, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see, I need to figure out a way to show this better, because I see a lot of YouTubers showing inside here. Is it like a flashlight I need? I don't know. I don't have a flashlight. I just have these big strobe lights for taking pictures and video, but inside there is some very light machine work. It is not nearly as involved as some of the other knives I have. It's very light inside, but nonetheless, it is machined inside there. And that's as good as I can show without taking it apart. Maybe one of these days, on one of my own knives, I will take it apart, but there's no need at all with this. There's just, it's so smooth. There is a spot for a lanyard on the back here, if that's the direction you want to go. If you're into that, you know what, it's super cool. You can do that up, throw some beads on here. This would actually look pretty good with some brass beads. Kind of mix the brass color with the orangey red tone of the eye of the tiger of the KC edition, Holy Diver. And, you know, I did comment on another video that I recently filmed about this, where I believe it was David. He referred to these as the Hannibal. That's what it was. I called it Bane's mask, but he referred to this as the Hannibal mask, which is great. And it's so fitting. But that design is in a lot of their knives, as I'll show here on... Let's take this Quantum. And you can see it's designed so that you don't have to put a full backspacer on there. And when you don't put a full backspacer on there, you can create a shorter handle And when you create a shorter handle with this piece on there, lo and behold, you can fit a little bit tiny longer of a blade. And I think that is a very cool and clever design feature. Very durable, although I have seen some, unfortunately, break. Very rare, but it has been known to happen. And if that is the case, obviously just take it apart and replace it. It's not a big deal. Blade centering, dead on as always on all Shirogorovs. These things are works of art and the gold standard in a production knife currently. Oh, there you go. I was waiting the lock bar. Comes out super easy, and these break in as well. And you know, if you have a stiff detent on a knife, just give it a few hundred opens or whatever, deployments. Or if you really want, you could probably just sit there and kind of do this and spread some of that factory grease. But honestly, once you shoot this out 100 times, it's going to be butter smooth, as you can kind of tell. I didn't mention the let's see here, the lockup. Yeah, it's pretty light, but the formation of this and the machine work on it, like Shirogorov's, it's actually a pretty it kind of curves back the other way, and you actually get a lot of lockup that you don't see. So very cool, 15% or so. And you know, one thing I'll say, some people get these things and they're like, oh, out of the box, oh, it's very light, so I'm just going to squeeze this and push it in and wear it in. It's like, please, for the love of the Calgary Flames, please don't do that. You're going to have a problem. Sounds good, eh? Hopefully the microphone can pick some of that up. Should sound nice and crisp. The hardware is proprietary in the form of, let's see here, do I have it? I don't even know if I have the tool floating around with me, but there is a little tool, kind of like this, there it is, that you use that has some screwdriver type pivots that you can use to take this guy apart. You know what? I have the tool because I've got 20 Shiros, and some of them every now and then need a little bit of an adjustment. You don't need that tool. Don't use a screwdriver, even though it will work. Remember, the titanium is very, you can scratch it depending on which type of screwdriver you're using. So if you're in a desperate pinch, just use a penny. Pennies are soft, and they'll mar up and screw up. You know, I've used this a lot on a hinder. They'll mess up a lot more prior to the titanium on the pivot, or as well, you know, a credit card folded in half and cut will do the trick as well. These pivots are not clamped down super tough. They're pretty easy to adjust. And yeah, I'd say 9 out of the 10 knives I have that I've gotten from Shirogorov are absolutely perfect from the factory in every single way, and do not need a hair of adjustment. So I don't sense that many people are going to require that. But yeah, the only real difference between this and the Neon Zero obviously is some inlays, the lack of a back spacer, and the M390 versus Chromax blade, which I don't see being a whole big issue for a lot of guys. Pocket clip's the same. The frame itself is essentially the same, other than a little bit of internal milling. And everything else about the same. So there you go. That is the Neon KC edition. For anyone who is curious about it, they do make, I don't know if it's a Quantum or an F95 version as well. I'd love to track that down and kind of compare that, just to have the set at some point. So I'll keep my eye open for that. But otherwise, super cool, well-made addition to the collection in Shirogorov. Absolutely beautiful knife. Should you buy it? Yeah, you should. And any of the Shirogorovs? Yeah, you should. Especially if it's your first Shirogorov, yeah, buy one. You're not going to ever be disappointed. And if you are, you can message me and I'll buy it off you. How's that? Okay, guys. Well, that is it. That is the Shirogorov KC Neon NL Special Edition. Super cool knife. Super glad that I got to find this one. And if you have any questions, let me know down below in the comments. I read them all and I'll comment to every single one. Otherwise, like, subscribe, share, and all that good stuff. And until next time, we'll see you around. See ya.